Welcome to Southbank Centre's book podcast, where you'll hear us in conversation with the people shaping arts and culture today.
If you want to hear from some of the biggest and most influential names in contemporary literature, then you're in the right place. In this latest episode of the podcast, we're going to feature highlights from another great event in our 2019 autumn literature season for your listening pleasure.
Just to let you know, there may be some strong language and sexual references. Good evening and welcome to Southbank Centre's Queen Elizabeth Hall. I'm Deborah Amon, Literature Programmer here at Southbank Centre, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Sara Pascoe's Sex, Power, Money. We're really excited to be presenting this event as part of our literature season. For me, reading Sara Pascoe's Sex, Power, Money was an interesting affair as someone raised by a wonderful evangelical Christian pastor for a mother. Heterosexuality was never something explicitly questioned, or, to be honest, questioning it was actively discouraged. However, as Pascoe's Sex, Power, Money shows, the whole story is never that simple. Beyond beliefs and opinions, my mother's actual existence questioned heterosexual norms in what she chose for herself, how she raised her children, and what she expected of the world. Chairing tonight's event is comedian and writer Deborah Frances-White, best known for her podcast, The Guilty Feminist. Please join me in welcoming Sara Pascoe and Deborah Frances-White.
Hello, and welcome. So we're here to talk about Sara Pascoe, Sex, Power, Money. This is an incredible book. If you haven't read it yet, and you may not have because it's just come out, nobody's judging you for not having read it yet, but I will be judging you if you haven't read it in 3 to 4 weeks. That would be the time I would give you. I understand you're busy people. But
we're coming round to your houses. When you book the tickets, we got your address. I'm going to come around with a 10-minute short exam.
That's why you should not give your data to anybody, especially Sara Pascoe, because she's got some questionable morals. As you will see when you read the book, she wants to do studies on people that are not right.
All I want to do, if you're going to do a proper scientific study, you have to get some twins as soon as they're born, and you need to get 2 separate islands. And your controls have to obviously be the same, but if you want to actually see the effect of, like, say, for instance, pornography on people, how it maybe affects their ideas of women or their sex lives, their erectile function, you give one of the islands the internet and the other one, they just do crochet. And I come and study them and then they're in their 50s. What's unethical about that?
And this is why Sara Pascoe cannot be Prime Minister, because Gibraltar would just be full of twin boys separated from their brothers, weeping, going, "Where's Thomas? Where's Andrew?"
They don't know.
They
They were split at birth. That's why it's so awful. They don't even know they're a twin. They found out at the end when I go, "Pornography ruined you." Also, you've got a brother.
Meet your brother Kevin.
Yeah.
Here's your brother Sanjeev. But the book, what I love about the book is it's very, very, very funny, and I kind of kept on laughing out loud when I was reading it, but it's extremely vivid with ideas and throbbing with ideas. I would go so far as to say fizzing.
I love the word throbbing and fizzing. The other day I did an interview, and the interviewer mentioned how often I said fizzy in the interview. I had 5 coffees.
Oh.
It was almost the only word I could say. I couldn't tell her I was having a panic attack, so I had to pretend I'm just fizzing, just fizzing with ideas.
Well, you'd obviously drunk a lot of coffee when you wrote this.
Oh, you have to, every line. Back to the kettle.
Yes, no, really, because it is full of brilliant ideas. What I love about it most is how you talk us through your intellectual and journey and your own shedding off of ideas that you had when you were younger. And some of those ideas are, I suppose, the trajectory is similar to that of intersectional feminism around pornography, sex workers. We've all learned a lot about that over the last couple of years. And you've really talked about your own, when your feelings are at odds with what you can see as rational. And if a sex worker's saying, "This is a great living for me," and you can still have strong feelings about that, but you understand you need to rationalize beyond those feelings. And you talk about that kind of thing a lot in here, how you're moving towards a better understanding of how the world works, especially where the intersections of sex, power, and money lie. So one thing I wanted to open with is that you talk about pornography being relative, and you found a very interesting example through Victorians stumbling across the ruins of Pompeii.
Oh, yes.
Completely intact.
Yeah, so that's when the word pornography began to be used, which was something I didn't know until I started researching the history of pornography. The definitions of pornography and what it is all change, are very, very subjective, and to some people, erotica is a completely different thing. But when Pompeii was discovered by Victorians, they thought that every single house was a brothel, because all of the houses had pictures or paintings, statues or ceramics that they were considered graphically sexual, and they weren't understood as what they are now understood to be, which is depictions of a trade of power. Some of them were very comedic at the time, apparently, but they just assumed, oh, everyone was just banging. And then they made a secret museum where they put all of the dirty artifacts inside so that no women would accidentally see them and die.
That idea that we impose on pornography, we impose on an image what is pornography, what is erotica, what is for our time simply normal. So you've pointed out in the book that in some places us just in our summer tank top might be seen as pornographic.
Yeah, it's like the idea of what's gratuitous is what's very different between individuals and then between cultures. And then also, what's interesting for me is that you don't have to be aroused by something to find it pornographic, or if you are aroused by something which has no intentions to arouse you, does that then become pornography? Because people masturbate to things that aren't technically porn.
You said in the book that your friend Tom...
He was trying not to use pornography, so he just started wanking to people's Facebook holiday photos. And so I named him in my book.
Are they now porn? So I've got two questions. Does that make the bikini shots of his friends porn?
Yeah.
And the second question I've got is your friend Tom my husband, Tom Salinsky?
That's why I asked you to do this, Deborah.
Yeah, because that's information I'm going to need. It did occur to me. I was thinking, surely Tom wouldn't have told Sara Pascoe that if he were doing
it. But it was just your holiday photos. He's actually a very romantic man. Yeah, it's just like you on the plane, you in the casino. You're both fully dressed at all times. I don't know why he was telling me.
When the novel came out, it was called The Novel because it was, in fact, novel. Oh, my goodness, how absurd, how new.
They've made it up.
It was, yes, yeah. and young women were seen to be wasting their time and hurting their brains by reading the novel. And
becoming unmarriageable. Anna Arrowsmith, on a podcast called Intelligence Squared, they did a debate about pornography in 2011. I think that the title of the debate was that pornography is great for society and it makes people more sexually expressive, something like that. And so it had 2 people against it and 2 people for the motion. And she was arguing that Victorians talked about male masturbation the way we talk about young men with pornography. Right. The fear was that they would become withered and pale, unable to communicate and socialise in their rooms, and that they just thought that from touching themselves. And she said it's exactly the same language that we use again with the same fear. Yes.
And do you think the Victorians were doing studies like you were when you sent out to all your friends on Facebook? If you said a study there where you said if
yes.
you're all the same age, if you're around the same age as me, when did pornography become available to you, or when did you feel it became available to you, or when did you think to look for it on the internet?
Because I knew I wasn't representative, because I saw porn twice by accident before I wrote my book at 36. So I knew I didn't want to write the book going, apparently there's porn out there, guys. Just want to warn you. Apparently there'll be bums. There'll be bums there.
Don't
say I didn't try. So I genuinely wanted to know. And again, because I think I'm such an uptight and also lectury friend, no one told me that they were watching pornography. Like, no one brought it up, like, oh, I'm going home to watch this, or I'm really into this at the moment. They wouldn't have dared. And so that's why I did that, ask people on Facebook, like, if you went to college with me, did you know that what was in computers? Did you know it
And
was
loads
in there?
of them came back and said they did.
Yes, they
Some
did.
of them didn't. Your
Yes.
friend that you name only as Aisling said she didn't.
Aisling B. She's like me, I think, as well.
You both have an enormous sense of morality about the world.
Oh,
And
we'd be very quick to tell you. This is my favourite thing about Aisling. Okay, the thing about Aisling is she's the most helpful, kind, generous woman. I think you get that from her comedy and everything anyway. She's astonishing. But the first time I met her, she was on the floor showing a pregnant woman how to give birth.
Wow. But even though she has not herself given
That's how
birth.
helpful she is. She doesn't need to have any experience to go, what you need to do. She was like, they'll try and put you on your back, say no, where you need to be.
Had she been to a class just in case?
I don't know. I've never asked her how she knew or if it was true.
She may have just been trying to be helpful.
She was just showing a heavily pregnant woman how to do
How
it.
to give birth. But the way you first saw porn, I thought was one of the most extraordinary stories I'd ever heard, and I was surprised you'd never told me before.
Oh, really?
You were working as a backing singer for Robbie Williams' dad.
Yeah, that was my career highlight. So this would have been, I had a very, do you know what, all I ever wanted when I was a young woman was to have like an interesting life. At 18, I worked at the Millennium Dome, which I didn't believe they were going to close because it was too amazing. And then they did. And then after the Millennium Dome, I did all of these little jobs, and I had one job. I went down to Havant. And so the train was quite expensive for an audition, and I was supposed to be working, and I was already starstruck by this, in a hotel that used to be used as the set for Noel's house party.
Wow.
So I was like, of course, get me on the train.
Yeah, I've made it,
and when
yeah.
I was in the room, they said, we think you're too good for the show at the building that used to be the set of Noel's house party. Have you heard of a man called Robbie Williams' dad? And I said, I haven't, but I'm very excited. And they said, Robbie went there on New Year's Eve last year.
Stop it.
I know. So I was just like, so I went to do this job, and with Robbie Williams' dad, Pete, who's really a nice man. It's a very poorly paid job. So you lived in a hotel, you walked around the hotel, you did these shows for, it was very, very old people. They're called Warner Holidays. Very old. It's for people who are very old and would like to go on a cruise, but they don't like boats. So they go to these ones, like, this was in Nottingham, and Robbie Williams' dad was the star of the show, and I would just come in if he couldn't hit a high note. Like, I just stood at the back doing this, and they'd be like, oh, he used to smoke a lot. And they'd be like, Viva Las Vegas, like that. And then one night, party in the hotel room, and people were smoking drugs, and I don't smoke drugs. People were smoking drugs, and I was really concentrating on that, like how to seem cool. But
While
also,
other people are smoking drugs.
but
and
also,
you're not.
no, but what do you do when they go, do you want to puff, Pascoe? Tell me how to deal with this. Do you want to puff, Pascoe?
I've been doing a bit too much, so I'm off it for a while.
That's cool. Is that what you say?
That's how you stay.
that how
that's
you
how you
get out
stay
of it?
cool and say no to drugs.
This is amazing life advice. Anyway, I was so busy trying to look like I was having a nice time, but avoid any joints. And someone changed the TV onto pornography, and I just heard squelching noises. And I definitely didn't know it was the kind of thing people put on at parties. I now know it isn't, is it? Like that. But I was 19. This is going to be life, isn't it? Smoking joints and watching porn are two worst things. So anyway, I saw a split second of it, just standard hardcore porn. It was a penis in a vagina in a close-up, but I'd never seen a close-up of a vagina and a penis before, and so to me, it was brutal. You know, like when someone has a picture of like an animal in an abattoir with no skin on? That was 2001, September the 10th. Yes, the next day, September the 11th happened, and I was at the hotel, and it was all these planes going into buildings, and it all got mixed together in my head in this like really Freudian way, and I blamed pornography for 9/11.
I mean, what is the sexy angle of sex, though, then? If it's not the vagina and the penis, and it's not the man bearing down on you...
Oh, no, what I mean...
What is
I'm
it?
sure, well,
is there one?
Yes. So here's the thing that where it becomes, we're really treading into, we are now going into what I would call like sticky territory. Not
all
like that.
puns intended.
Yeah. Look, because the thing is, the minute you start to say, this is true of cis men, or this is true of men, or women, you're not actually ever talking for an individual. In terms of the evolution of arousal, so one of my questions before I started writing the book, men watch more porn than women. And that's across every country where they have the internet. So pretty much every culture in the world. And there's quite a big disparity. And there are lots of other studies. There's studies about masturbation. There's study about masturbation in teenagers, masturbation with priests and nuns. There's all of these different ones, but they always find this disparity between men and women, which doesn't talk to any individual and what you do, but in general, when we're all lumped together. The thing that felt most true for me, and so trying to work out this thing, why? Because I don't believe that men just have a higher sex drive, because that actually wouldn't make any evolutionary sense.
And we know it's not true from our friends, because the amount of female friends I have who complain
With partners who
that
won't
their
put
boyfriends
out,
and their husbands don't want to have enough sex or,
Yes.
or sex with them.
Yes. But again, it's a cultural story, because I think we've seen so much of men being frustrated in a long-term relationship, and then we're only just starting to really see the female side of heterosexuals. But so in terms of being instantly attracted by what you see, so the idea of being like visually aroused by pornography, this is an evolutionary argument, not science, by the way, not respect it, I mean, take it or leave it. The idea is that in terms of us 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years ago, living as hunter-gatherers, for a male to get instantly aroused by seeing sex happening, and obviously that would only be because sex is happening. The idea that he would be aroused by that is quite useful in terms of him spreading his genes, because it might mean he is about to have sex. So the idea that he would just be aroused by seeing penetration or something else sexual makes complete sense. The theory that for the female body, it might not be the same quick response of like, woohoo, I might be about to have sex, would be because for the whole of our evolution, there are situations that would have been so dangerous for us. And I know that sounds shit. I'm not saying that we didn't have ancestors that walked into a clearing and went, they're having sex, yes. And thought it was amazing and brilliant, but in our evolution, strange men, or the reason that we have sex in private is for a large reason, so that other men don't see it and think they can join in.
Because then
it
your
would be so
sperm
dangerous.
will be...
My sperm will be fine.
No,
yes.
one sperm, the man sperm,
Yes.
the cis man sperm won't be beaten out by other sperm.
Yes.
So he wants it to be private.
So that's
There's
the
an
thing.
evolutionary advantage to the men who
so
want it.
with sperm competition. But the other thing is, for a female, in our again, it's all evolutionary theory. But it's not just about who impregnates you. Our young take a huge amount of caring for, and that's why a male who believes it is his child is far more useful to you in evolutionary terms than a group of men who don't know.
You talk about private time in your book, and you talk about the anti-FAP movement. I'd never heard of this.
So it's a movement, and it's actually all connected to technology, and especially kind of internet porn. But it's a movement, and they're all men. So FAP is the onomatopoeic term for male masturbation, according to them. I don't know.
Is that what it sounds like, FAP?
I asked somebody this, and then he did me such a vocal impression with his mouth of like a lubed hand hitting the bottom of the body. Like, flop, 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 flop. The term for women, because there is one for women as well, and it's like...
So that would be if you decided to give that up.
No, but there is that. It's basically that. Yeah, there's some talk about that as well. But it's all connected with pornography and socialization and dopamine. There's been some really successful TED talks about how we have a dopamine cycle in our brain and watching certain things, and it's not just pornography. It's things like playing a lot of computer games. Certain things might interfere with that cycle. They might lead to you feeling a bit kind of on a lower level, a bit bleak, flat. Is the word I'm looking for. And some people do it for an amount of time. So they will say like 30 days, no masturbation, no pornography. And quite often what they find is that they will start to get very aroused all the time, because it's something that's been needing quite, I guess especially with hardcore pornography, quite extreme triggers after a number of days or weeks, now might just be like standing next to someone with a nice perfume. Or, I don't know, I just picked such a nan example. Like, oh, men don't appreciate nice perfume anymore. But it might be quite a subtle thing. And then people feel like, oh, they're more in touch again with their sexuality. So for some people it's that, and for some people it's like they will never watch porn ever again. And then it becomes the people who think they will never, ever masturbate ever again. And I think that's a very extreme thing. And actually, masturbation is a very important part of male sexual health. Yeah.
Because of regenerating the sperm.
Yes, because sperm has a little life in your testicles, and basically after like 5 to 7 days, where you try to impregnate somebody with it, I'm not saying that that's your bag, but if it was, they would be geriatric, so not very useful. And so in terms of sperm competition and our evolution, you're much better to have fresher sperm. So sometimes when somebody is in a new relationship or has met someone they fancy, they actually masturbate more, but it's about having fresh, vital sperm. And sperm also, this is a really lovely fact, they're kind of dormant in the testicles. They have to wait until they get into body temperature, because obviously the testicles are outside of the body to keep the sperm slightly cooler. And then when they go inside a body, a vagina, then they wake up. What is this? That was just nice to think of, isn't it?
That fascinates me that they're kept in the testicles as a cooling mechanism.
But otherwise, if your testicles were inside your body, you'd have to wank constantly because they'd always be dead. They'd just be swimming around in you, and then by the time you've ejaculated them, useless. So that's why they're down there.
So do you think some men do have their sperm further inside of their body, men like Harvey Weinstein and Louis C.K., and that's why they have to wank so constantly?
Don't try and make me look like I'm an apologist.
That's it for this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the Southbank Centre Books podcast in all the usual places.
For more information about upcoming events, go to southbankcentre.co.uk or look us up on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.